Hi everyone, I'm Brianna and this is Lockie, and we're studying at the University of Otago studying Master of Finance. Today we have Simon Allen.
Hi.
The first question is, what did you study at university and how did it prepare you for the real world?
I started with a Bachelor of Science down here at Otago University, and that gave me the opportunity to work out what I wanted to do and to learn quite a lot about the techniques and disciplines behind science. That's been part of what I've used in my career. I then did a Bachelor of Commerce and entered the sort of commercial world after that. On the way through, I've always kept on studying, so I've gone to other universities overseas to sharpen up my knowledge. So the original degree gave me lots of disciplines about how to manage and do things. And the other thing to note was it allowed me to meet lots of people that have become lifelong friends, and actually I've helped them and they've helped me in my career.
You serve on a number of boards. How did you establish yourself as a director and what are your key responsibilities?
I was quite fortunate when I came back to New Zealand in 1988 that the company I started up was an investment bank, and I had arranged with my employers from Australia to be allowed to do one governance role beside my CEO role in the investment bank, and I did that for the 21 years I was the CEO. My first official role was an appointment by the government onto the Auckland District Health Board, which was renamed Auckland Healthcare and is now called the Auckland District Health Board. And so I sort of was very lucky to get into governance at the age of 30 and have been in it ever since. In terms of a director and what do you do, that's a big question. Clearly, the governance of an organisation, whether you're a director or the chair, is the single most important thing. The roles have changed over time, but what has remained constant is your job is to govern the company, set the strategy, get the people working together doing it. What's changed a lot is the various calls on a company by stakeholders now have to be met by that company, and the directors have to make sure that those things happen. In the very old days, really the focus was only on shareholders and outcomes. Nowadays it's customers, community, your social license to operate, and all of the other inputs that go into your company. So it's forever changing in terms of the role of a director in some ways.
How do you see the insurance sector addressing the risks of climate change?
Well, the Refining New Zealand board has been reporting on carbon and emissions for quite some time now. Also as a company, because it is a company that's heavily exposed in those areas, they have spent a lot of money over the last 10 years upgrading facilities to reduce the carbon footprint of the company. We will absolutely report to any required reporting standards in the future, and we're totally committed. The second or third point is that the Refining New Zealand has announced a strategic review of what they're doing and how they're doing it, and that is in part in relation to the carbon footprint and climate change. That review is in conjunction with customers and staff and everyone, and we're pursuing that strategic review as we speak.
How is the insurance sector addressing the increased risks to physical assets due to climate change?
Well, that is at the heart of insurance, and we are heavily involved in assessing climate change effect. What we do is we insure the physical assets of the people of Australia and New Zealand, and IAG is the largest insurer in Australia and the largest insurer in New Zealand. What we have observed, and we agree that the climate change effect in the long term is going to see things like water level rising. It would surprise a lot of people to know that by the end of the century, on accepted science, 120,000 houses in New Zealand will be inundated with water unless society adapts and mitigates the risks to those houses. We have quite a strong public program now of educating local government and government that they should start moving reasonably quickly on adaptation and mitigation of issues relating to climate change. Now, in the shorter term, which affects insurance companies more year by year, 6 out of New Zealand's 7 most expensive weather events, not including earthquakes, have actually occurred in the last 7 years. So the frequency and severity of those types of events has gone up. And that does go to how an insurer responds to it, but firstly with price and with other levers. But again, I come back to the insurance industry in conjunction with the people has to make sure that we mitigate and reduce risk and reduce losses so that we don't end up having to pay too much for insuring those assets in the future.
You have been involved in many government and industry collaborations. Which role was the most challenging and why?
Probably the most rewarding and the most challenging and the biggest was the establishment of Crown Fibre Holdings as chair back in 2009 and building the ultra-fast broadband network to most of the houses of New Zealand. And that was a very rewarding but challenging exercise because it involved civil works of over $6 billion building that network out to New Zealand. Our organisation designed a process which procured the private sector to build that network.
What are your 3 most important life lessons?
First one is enjoy and nurture the people that you work with and play with. And in the work environment, the people are the most important thing to you, whether you're working for them, with them, or they're working for you. And more it's a team effort in terms of outcomes. The second thing is I spend a lot of time planning, and planning means, in a company sense, it's strategy and planning. In a personal sense, it's planning. And if it's not planned, it sort of might not happen. And included in the planning is creating optionality. So when things come along or opportunities come along, you are able to grab them, and that's really valuable. And maybe the other thing is you've got to work hard and play hard, and have a reasonable amount of work-life balance.
What keeps you awake at night?
It's a different answer today from when I was young. When I was young, I would worry about everything all the time. I've probably got so many things to worry about nowadays that I do not stay awake about individual things unless there's actually a crisis on. If there's a crisis on, yeah, I'll worry about it. If the staff are at risk from a health and safety perspective, or there's been a major problem in a company that I'm involved in, then it will affect me. But one of the main techniques is to make sure that I do get a reasonable amount of exercise, which means that helps me sleep at night.
Who do you admire and why?
It's not one person, it's a group of people that took the internet to the world and the techniques and the machinery that uses the internet, because in my view it's like a modern day industrial revolution. We take them for granted today, and yet we're only 30 years in from the internet starting up, and they really do have my greatest admiration.
How do you find balance between work and personal commitments?
Nowadays, I plan for time out, plan for time with the family, plan for time away. When I was your age, I didn't have work-life balance. I just worked. Once I went to and got a job, I worked, and yes, did a bit of exercise, but work-life balance wasn't a focus actually of employers in those days, but it also wasn't a focus for groups of us that were working very, very long hours. So I've been through both phases of no work-life balance through to proper work-life balance. I retired from full-time employment in 2009. So since then, as a governor of companies, I'm able to plan my time a lot better than you can when you're working very long hours full-time. And I enjoy it and plan regularly on new things to do.
What advice would you like to give to students at Otago?
I think you will find when you're old that you'll look back on this time as one of the greatest parts of your life. It's the beginning of your learning journey. It's not the end of your learning journey. And so your next phases, when you go into work or whatever you're doing, you'll continue to learn. One of the things you hopefully have got out of being here is a hunger for learning. And that turns into you finding the areas of passion, the things you like doing. And if you find those and you work hard at them, it's very hard not to succeed. And so my lesson is search for those things that really interest you, leverage off all your friends and your people on the way through, because they will help you more than you think. And with that passion and that effort and the learnings you've got and the people, life should be pretty good.
Thank you very much, Simon, for coming to chat to us and for sharing your knowledge and insights, and all the best for the rest of your year, and hopefully we keep in touch. Cheers.
Thank you, and all the best to you too.
Thank you.
Yeah.